All right. I want to get my opinion about the Haiden Deegan Star Yamaha 250 bike claim at Loretta's. The reason I want to get my opinion out there is because social media today makes it to where everybody can. And I'm not going to pick a side, though I have a side that I think is more truthful than the other. And it won't be long. I just want to say, for those of you that are in denial about Brennan's side of the story being true, I challenge you to just ask yourself, what were so many people involved to oppose this doing together? Why were so many people who opposed this on the opposing side, why were they involved together to discuss this in the first place? The claiming rule is claim the bike, pay the money, get the bike. I understand Deegan had another race the following day. AMA already has a process in place for that. Impound. Star Yamaha said they had to check the engine and maybe change it. That's fine. Seal the engine, pull it out. It's Schofield's, right? Put it back in, or give him the bike with the replaced motor and the original motor. Whatever Brennan raced in the 250B final Moto 3 is the bike he should get. Anything they want to add and put on that bike after the fact should also be Brennan's, free of charge. So everyone on the Yamaha side fully knows the rule is there and it's in place. Everybody in Kawasaki, everybody in Suzuki, everybody in KTM, everybody in Husqvarna, every parent, every team, every sponsor knows that rule is in place. Don't tell me otherwise. So don't use that as a reason to why they were all gathering their troops together, was to figure out what to do, or Deegan's got another schoolboy class that he's got to race. So we were just trying to figure. You guys already know all the rules. They know what they had to do. Them gathering together in discussion had nothing to do with that, but it had everything to do with how can we stop this and prevent this. Why? Well, that's pretty obvious. Yamaha didn't want their tech secrets out there. Can't blame them, right? They got caught with tech secrets in a bike. They didn't want them out. Let's face it, yes, this is an amateur race, for sure. But Deegan is no amateur. He is being treated already as an amateur, like a pro. In fact, not just a pro, like a long-term pro rider for the future. They took him from KTM for a reason, and they're treating him already like he's a pro, even though he's not. And by that I mean they're giving him pro parts, pro suspension, pro engine, pro tuning, everything in that bike. I do not have a doubt that it was a factory race, fully loaded bike, and that's why Yamaha, the Deegans, AMA even in some ways, and I'll get in that in a bit, the race promoter, everybody got so involved because there was a lot more going on there than what people realize. So, to Donnie of Yamaha, to say that he doesn't have the pull to threaten a Canadian dealer, all of this is just nonsense. Donnie is only a small part of a huge Yamaha brand whose reach is endless, right? And all he had to do was make a phone call upstairs above him, and that dealership in Canada was instantly notified. Deegan's, they truly didn't want their name defamed. Isn't that what Brian said in the meeting with Schofield when he was allowed by the AMA in there alone with that kid? What are you trying to defame us, was what Brian asked him. And this is why Brian asked that question. Imagine how much hate mail the Deegans have gotten through the years. We can see by watching their channel how hard they have worked to show and display Haiden working for what he's getting, because so many haters out there on the Deegans are saying Haiden is privileged, he hasn't worked for it, he hasn't earned it. That's bull. Haiden has worked hard Brian has worked hard. The whole family has sacrificed and worked hard. They're in a financial position that most of us aren't, that's for sure. But Haiden hasn't been given anything that he didn't earn. So they've been dealing with this kind of hate for years. They've been dealing with these questions of Haiden being privileged for years. And I believe I heard one video where Haiden was disqualified from a 50, a PW race, Pee Wee race on a 50 because it had a big bore kit in it. So not only do the haters of the Deegans, claim that the only reason Haiden does good is because he's got all this money behind him and all this and that, but he's also a cheater, right? So now at Loretta's, here is a bike that's clearly a cheater bike. It is the gap between the amateurs and the factory teams is supposed to be like this, right? Like this. But Hayden's bike was clearly off the charts because he's more than an amateur rider to Star Yamaha. He is their pro rider. He just isn't on the pro team yet, but he is their pro rider with pro rider equipment. So I believe Brian didn't want factory parts in that Yamaha that Haiden was winning on to be exposed, because that would just add to what? It would add to the cheater claims. There's Haiden again with his privileged money, with his cheater parts, and he just didn't want them. That's why he said, "Are you here to defame us?" And I believe that's that in a nutshell. Now the trainer guy, that Walker, I think his last name is, he's a butt kisser. I remember listening to the engine guy of Brennan, who kept saying over and over, "I got his back. When I'm working with someone, I've got their back till the end." I thought, why does he keep saying that? I thought he was like boasting himself up and bragging. I think because he saw how the trainer, Walker, instantly turned his back on the kid and sided with the bigwigs and the corporations who had more influence than this kid would. I really believe Walker's a butt kisser, and I think he valued the bigwig connections that he had in the industry more than he did his rider. The AMA, they appeared to be 80% okay, doing right, but they still gave not just Brian a meeting with the kid, which the AMA official even said he shouldn't do that, but they still gave everybody involved a chance to get together on this rather than simply enforce the rule. Those AMA officials should have just been saying, "No, stop. We don't want to hear it. This is how it goes, and this is the way it's going to be. This is the rule," right? That's how it should have been. But they need Lorettas to succeed. Right now, the industry is not what it used to be. It's strong in pockets around the country, but it is not what it should be, and they need the industry to survive. And so I could see why they were trying to cater to everybody involved, but that's not what the rule is. The rule only caters to the person with the money, however he got it, and that claim times 2 for that bike. Now the Canadian bike sponsor, the dealership in Canada who pulled their sponsorship, I believe they absolutely felt Yamaha pressuring them, and their connection to dealing in the Yamaha brand was in jeopardy. Now, as far as dropping Brennan after the Canadian Nats, I think that's a great decision. I'm a business owner. I'd have done the same thing. Why? Because at this point, Brennan's a liability, and nobody wants to be connected to him. And obviously, that dealership's factory brand, Yamaha, doesn't want to be connected to him either. So they did what they had to do. Kudos to them for waiting until after Brennan finished with his Canadian Nats, his Nationals, right? Whatever, they have a title of, I forget what it is. But it also proves that they absolutely feared repercussions coming from Yamaha over all this. That's why they dropped him. If they didn't drop him, they wouldn't be worried, as some of the videos and blogs have said, "Oh, they're not worried about sponsorship. American companies can't threaten world or can't, impose their reach onto another country's dealership." Absolutely they can. Absolutely they can, and that was obvious because they dropped him. Fortunately, they let him race, and he blew up a motor, and he didn't have anything left to race, and they dropped him afterwards. Had they dropped him before that Canadian Nationals, that would have been a bad look on them, but I don't blame them. for what they're doing. Their business is bigger than one kid. And now we're not talking ethics or, what's character. We're just talking business. I can't blame them in that side at all. Cotter, I believe it's Moto X. He's the head race promoter. I don't believe his side of the story hardly at all. He only really got cordial with Schofield, with Brennan, after the pressure parts to withdraw this claim were already put in place and working, and he saw that. And he knew what the outcome was going to be, and then he began to be more of a middle-of-the-road guy. But until then, he was on the side of Yamaha and the Deegans and the dealership and the trainer. I mean, all those parts that were together. He was on their side. And it's simple. I've been a race promoter. I've promoted airplane races and several things, and there's a lot of pressure on you to cater to and meet the needs of everybody that's involved, so that they come back and they bring their money, they bring their entries, and your sponsors come back, and there's just. You want fairness, but you want your main sponsors and your participants and your crowd drawers to return, or at least in Deegan's case, he's not going back there. But we've got Hudson coming up, and I believe even going forward, he didn't want to burn bridges, whether it's with Yamaha or the Deegans. Too much money is lost otherwise. He needs Yamaha to be there, and not just Yamaha. But if Kawasaki watches the way he does or doesn't handle this, they pull out. If Husqvarna, KTM, Suzuki, Honda, whoever, if they're all watching how he handles this, and you got to understand there's enormous pressure to cater to where most of the money is coming from. All right? That's my opinion on the main players. Everybody who was in a position to lose something, and I want you to get this as I end this, everybody who was in a position to lose something by this bike claim sided together. They came together. So yes, their stories are going to kind of match. Why? They came together to ensure that they did. The only one who was in a position to gain anything was Brennan, and using his own money too, by the way. But it actually is he's the only one who ends up losing out, so to speak. I think credibility's been lost by Star. I think credibility's been lost by the race promoter, by the dealership in Canada, by the trainer, by the Deegans. I believe they have truly lost something that money can't buy. It's hard to win. It was hard for Brennan to succeed in this and be the victor when you are all alone and you're facing that many influencers, that many bigwigs of corporations and companies who decide to unite in order to stop you. It's sad because the claim rule is there to prevent exactly what happened, and it failed. Why did it fail? Not because the rule itself is flawed, but clearly because there was too much outward influence allowed on one kid's decision to follow the claim rule. I say this, shame on Yamaha, shame on the AMA, shame on Moto X, shame on the Deegans, shame on the Canadian Yamaha dealership. These people failed the amateur race industry. And most importantly, these people failed the kids of motocross. And that's not what we want. We don't want failure. We want to see this industry succeed. And their efforts to succeed individually may just cost the industry as a whole, not only to have a black eye, but to possibly lose in the end.